Hi, and welcome to the Hancock Creative Podcast. I'm Shawn Hancock.
And I'm Missy Hancock.
And I'm Gabriel Hancock.
And today we're talking about music writing, storytelling, and character development and things thereof.
With our son, Gabriel.
That is me.
There is a process in writing that I would like to talk about, and that starts with a little bit of inspiration, and it could be insignificant, and from that insignificant thing, great things can come from it. And Gabriel and I were texting earlier, and he brought up this interesting moment when a person is choking, and I'm sure this has probably happened where he's just sat there and watched and took notes. But a person is choking,
watching strangers for hours.
He's like creepily over in the corner taking notes of someone choking on a piece of bread or something.
He knows the Heimlich, but he decides it's more fun to watch.
I'm just going to see what happens. No, so he brought up this interesting scenario where a person is choking on a piece of bread, and then they go through this process of thinking, I'm about to die, with that realization, and then someone comes and helps them, and then they have this sense of relief, and then they go into this sense of embarrassment or public embarrassment or something.
Yeah.
What were you? What
I think I was just saying, like, I have all these weird ideas for songs that don't seem like they should be songs. It's like, how do I write a song about a guy that's choking on a piece of bread? Like, that's like how half of the stuff that I like to write is. It's kind of like that. It starts like this really almost ridiculous idea or something.
Yeah, well, it's what's fascinating is that it starts off as something that could easily be overlooked. You could just like, oh man, that was terrible, and then I'm glad somebody was there to help him, and then go on about your day.
Right.
But to see that moment and think, I wonder how that guy was feeling.
Yeah. What
emotions were going through his mind. Do emotions go through mind? I don't know. Anyway, what emotions he was going through.
I think they go through your butt. No. It's kind of an interesting point, like when you said like someone could see that and just like go about their day. I think it's like kind of what a lot of writers that I've heard interviews with or whatever, they're kind of tapped into that stuff that everybody is kind of walking past a lot, I think.
Yeah.
Like just stuff that seems insignificant kind of like keeps growing in writers' minds, I think, and it turns into something like in that book on writing that Stephen King wrote about writing.
The one he wrote on writing?
Yeah. He talks about how he came up with Carrie, and it was basically these two ideas collide randomly, and you don't know how that's going to happen or how it ends up happening. But like for him with Carrie, it was this, he had read someplace that telekinesis, like powers of telekinesis can be brought on in puberty because of like high stress and like something like that that some people claim to have telekinesis in their pubescent years or something like that,
like a mutant or something.
Yeah, like that.
Like
It is basically
something.
like X-Men is what, but it was I mean X-Men was around then, but he had that idea in the back of his mind, like, oh, that's interesting. And then he was a janitor at a school, and they had to like refill the tampon container or something like that. I don't even know. It was something like that. And then he thought about like how terrible that would be to get your period for the first time. That would like bring on that
Telekinesis.
some kind of like that thing, and then I don't know. And then he had that spark where like two things collide.
Yeah.
And then it's like a start of an idea.
Yeah.
And I think that's interesting.
Isn't that how you write a lot of your songs? Like I know you have one song where it's like you've gone into the house. You know what I'm talking about. Do you remember the name of it? You find an old desert.
House.
Yeah, the abandoned house. And you talk about the calendar on the wall being whatever year. I love that song, but my mind is blank. But anyway, how does that work with you?
I don't know. Like, how does what work?
Well, just the development of a song, or even the development specifically of that song? Was that the first thing you thought of?
Well, yeah, that song was like, remember how Grandma and Grandpa had that, they had that old house that was like up on bricks that they had moved to the ranch, and they never...
Oh, yeah.
They had this house that was on bricks that they had moved to the ranch where they were staying, but they were staying in a trailer next to it.
Because they were going to...
They never did anything with that.
Yeah, they were going to put the house down and like make a foundation and everything, but it just stayed on bricks. And and I like remember climbing into that house and like how everything in the house was basically stuck in the 80s.
Stuck in time.
It was just like stopped, and there was like Mad magazines in the closet and like stuff like that. And it was like, but I remember thinking about that and how weird that was. And I think that that's what's like, I had that idea in my mind for a long time that I wanted to write a song like that, where it's like, I want to talk about that feeling that I felt inside the house, where it's just like, what happened? Like, there's kind of this feeling of like, even though you know what happened, like I knew what happened with them, but when you're inside an abandoned house or something, you're just like, what happened here? Because it's automatically like someone was murdered and chained in a closet. or something like that.
Something horrible, some tragic. I know, that's like sometimes like when we were looking for a place to live, we were house hunting or something, we'd come across these houses that were like, people just like up and left, and they just left their stuff there. And it was so weird to see people's stuff there, and you're like, what happened? You know, it has this weird mood or feeling about the whole thing. Is there's a heaviness and a mystery involved in it, and it could very well just be nothing, you know, but it feels like something ominous has happened.
Yeah. I think that that's what's fun about writing those, that like eventually you get to express whatever that feeling is that you kind of have in the back of your mind for a really long time. I think that's what's fun about it.
Yeah.
Well, and that song does capture that weird feeling, that empty, but yet, I don't know. I'm not calling your song empty, but you know what I mean.
That song is weird and empty.
I don't know.
Okay, so I kind of wanted to touch on the wide variety of storytelling, because we're talking about storytelling in music, and there's a wide variety of storytelling. And my personal view on storytelling is that every artist is a storyteller. I think that's the common link between all of us.
Well, yeah, all the arts.
Yeah, every artist in all the art forms, they're telling a story somehow, some way. Even in dance, there's storytelling happening. And some stories are not as concrete, yeah. And some of them are more abstract or whatever, but some of them are, very concrete, you know. So, we have stories, obviously, in novels, and we have movies, and we have even video games are telling a story. I think just about every single art form, there's storytelling happening. And so I think it's fascinating, that whole aspect of storytelling and how important it is to us. And so why is that important? Why is story so important to us? Why are we so interested in it? Just about everywhere we turn, there's a story being told to us.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
I think we all are like deeply, not only desire, but kind of have a need to relate and to be related to connect to other, to connect to other people, even if it's.
Do you mean that as like a writer or as a listener or a viewer?
Oh, you mean as the artist or as the...
Yeah.
Well, I just think it's
Both,
in everyone.
probably.
Yeah, I think it's part of being human, is this longing to connect to other humanity. And therefore, art is going to like, circle around that theme.
I think something too is like we repeat the same stories over and over a lot. I think everybody's like,
we want to be told the same story, or
kind of, or there's like something about stories that I think it kind of tricks us, our brains in a way, I think, of thinking that there's something different around the corner. And I think that that's what we kind of want, is this like idea that there's something different around the corner, but we actually know that it's going to wrap up somehow. Like even a bad story, like even a story that doesn't end well wraps up.
Yeah.
I think that's the scariest thing to us, maybe, is the things that never resolve themselves in any way.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And I think that that's kind of why we like stories, is that it's like we're looking at something and it has an end. It has a beginning and a middle and an end in some way, you know? Even if it's just like, okay, here's a story about a cat going to steal some food from this guy. The beginning of the story is that there's a cat. The middle of the story is that there's some food, and the end of the story is there's a guy. Like there's well, yeah, whatever.
Yeah,
like that
yeah.
there's like some kind of pattern there.
Yeah.
I think makes us like, okay, there's like, it kind of, I think makes us think there's more order to things.
Or more purpose, maybe,
Yeah.
to life than just
Yeah.
everyday living. Yeah, for us to experience that there's a beginning and a middle and an end to our existence, or that there's reason, or that, you know, something important in our own story is valuable to us, I guess.
Yeah. I think that's important to us. And I think that what's weird about that is that I think in real life, things wrap up like a story. I mean, like a story would, but they're over longer periods of time.
Right.
With gaps in between them. And there's no, like,
yeah.
I mean, it's
we
like,
have all these story threads that are constantly
they're always
in
going
our
at
lives.
once. It's like,
Yeah.
it's like one could be like, will I ever get that shirt I want? Like, it's like, I really want this shirt. And then it's like, you'll spend all this time, like, maybe even years looking for this one kind of shirt.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, I wish I had that in the back of your mind. Then you forget about it. But that is like a story that's continuing in your life. And like someday, like you'll walk into the store and you'll see that shirt and you'll forget that it was a story. Like in the back of your mind.
And then
it wraps up.
Yeah, and then the end of the story.
The ice cream suit. Wasn't there like an ice? There's a movie
it was a
about
movie
a suit.
and about these. I think it was three guys who pitched in together to buy an ice cream, what they called the ice cream suit, which was basically a white suit, and it made every one of those guys look like 10 times better than they were. You know, it like really improved themselves, and it gave them all this confidence. It was almost like a super suit, but I think all it was,
I remember that.
all it was that it just gave them confidence because they looked good in it, and so they went out and they like changed their lives when they had the suit. And so they would trade the suit, and then eventually, you know, I think they ended up fighting over the suit or something. I can't remember now, but that was a pretty
probably
good
tore their
movie.
lives apart in the end.
Yeah, I think it probably the suit.
More of the story, don't try.
I think it was really a commentary on what is real friendship. Probably, I can't even remember. It was so long ago that we saw it. But there's this interesting thing about story, and that how little actually needs to be told. Like you were saying, you can, you know, the story could revolve around just, you know, wanting a shirt or something. And a lot of times, and I've always been fascinated by Jesus's parables, and I don't think people really think about him this way, but he was a storyteller, and he would tell these parables, and the purpose of them was to confuse people. And it's like, so he's not even trying to communicate effectively.
It's like a Bob Dylan song. What's that mean?
Yeah, exactly. But it's like when you confuse people that way, it makes them think on these things even more than they normally would. Like, what does that even mean? I don't know. Yeah. And you could spend the rest of your life thinking about those kinds of stories.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting, because I was talking to somebody about how, like, some of my favorite music or favorite movies even sometimes, or whatever, it's like some of my favorite music, I had to take time to like it.
To like it, yes.
And my initial listen, it was like, I was almost confused. I was like, there's something about this that I like, but I don't know what it is yet.
Yeah.
And I have to keep listening.
Okay.
And then some of those albums that I've listened to that way, they become a part of your life, because it's almost like you're trying to figure them out.
Yeah.
You're like, what is it that I like about it? And then so you start picking it apart, and you're like, oh, I like the way this sounds, I like that lyric. I don't like this lyric, but I'll forgive it because, it's just, it just kind of becomes a part of you after a while.
Yeah. I mean, you, at some point, you've listened to it so much that you own it. It becomes yours, I think it's fascinating, not to get off the subject, but I think it's fascinating to enjoy and to own music that's not from your generation. To like really, embrace music from a generation that, before you were even born means so much to you. Mm-hmm. And then it's even interesting to see that in other people, like when young people start enjoying older music, mm-hmm. you think, why are you interested in this? What do you care about this? This isn't music from your generation. But I think that's when you know that music is really doing its job. You're timeless, or it is classic, or it is, actual work of art whenever it lasts through generations.
Now, I don't know if this became a part of me, but a movie that did that for me, like you're saying, where you're not even sure if you liked it at first, was Napoleon Dynamite. I'm watching it just like, what the freaking hell am I watching right now? So and weird. You watch the whole thing, but you can't take your eyes off of it. And then it became a crazy, ridiculous.
I think me and Tessa watched that like 5 times in the theater.
You did. I remember.
We went to the Dollar Theater over and over again with different groups of friends. I think.
Well, I kind of hate to bring it up because it became so ridiculously popular that some people are like, I hate it. But but it was at first, I mean, it was like an acquired taste. It was like some kind of really strange ethnic food you've never tried before that you're like, do I like this? I don't know if I like this. And then you love it. So
yeah,
there you go.
I'm still waiting for alcohol to do that for me, but it hasn't.
Yeah.
So
Dad's not into alcohol.
I don't think it ever will. You're like, it's an acquired taste. You just keep, I'm not into it.
I am.
He had his first drink at 45, and we're all so excited. Vinton, it was like, what? You're going to drink? So he's like, for your birthday, for an early birthday present. They went to the liquor store, and he got him a nice setup. And Shawn always thought it'd be cool to be a bartender. So he wanted to mix drinks, and he thought, well, if I'm going to mix drinks, I'm going to drink them. And he hated it. So that's the backstory on that. I don't know that you needed backstory.
Yeah, no, but I just think that acquired taste is not necessarily always going to come through for you.
Okay.
I don't know. I kind of am curious about, since you mentioned backstory, actually it kind of ties in, but I was curious about characters and character development. And the reason I bring this up is because Gabriel is always doing some sort of character. And I don't know if have you ever done that?
What?
Incorporated that into your music? I mean, like really. Not like in the music, but on stage or anything.
No, I'm just ridiculous all the time. I don't know what. No, just like making voices and stuff.
Yeah. So one time, Gabriel and I were helping our friend Tim paint a house, and Gabriel's on the back side of the house, and Tim and I are on the front side of the house. And I go to the back side of the house to get some paint, and I hear Gabriel just jabbering away.
I was talking
back there.
To myself.
It's like, who's he talking to? And he's just doing this character. I don't know what he is, like some redneck or something. I don't know what he was. I can't remember his character. But he was like really jabbering away to himself back there. And I come back up to the front. I can still hear him talking. And he like keeps talking. I asked him, I said, does he do this all the time? And he goes, yeah, all the time. Which is something you come to enjoy, when you're working with him.
Tim was like, but I really like listening to him.
It's like, I don't need to turn the radio on when I'm working with Gabriel.
Well, I don't have a radio back there, so I was just like going crazy talking to myself.
So, what characters are you creating in these times?
What do you mean?
Well, what's the process? I mean, it's weird to talk about this because it's just something you naturally do. But it's almost like when you're writing a story or writing a song or something, there's that one little piece of information that if you just expound on that, you keep growing that, it evolves into a character, and then that character, what's that character's story, and it evolves into a whole story or whatever.
I think that real character development happens with like novels or something, probably more. But I think that I do like characters because in songs, just because I think it's interesting. I don't know. I do this anyways all the time, kind of. I just kind of look at somebody's life, or I think it's easy to be like, oh, that girl's pregnant again. That sucks. You're dumb. Like, like that's so easy to say. And then at the same time, it's like, oh, wait, like you kind of look at like, what kind of person is she? Like, where'd she come from? What's she like? What's her morals? Like, what kind of moral guidelines does she have in her life? Like, not like,
and why are
not
they
in
there?
a religious way or anything. Just like everybody has a code. And I think that's what's interesting is that everybody in life has a code, and that determines kind of what kind of person and decision they're going to make. And I think that that's interesting because lots of people don't have a hard code, like a hard line code. It's kind of like circumstances define their code.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think that's what's interesting about characters is it's like, okay, so this character stole money from an old woman in a nursing home. That sounds terrible. It's just like, oh, you're the worst person ever. And like, yes, by my code, he's a terrible person. You could have stolen from so many other people.
Right.
But anyways, it's like you have no idea like what led up to that point.
Yeah.
Like how many things stacked up to that point. And I think that that's interesting with characters for me is like what makes this person tick and like why did they do this?
When you start analyzing, you could start with a voice. Just this is a silly voice, but why does this person talk this way? Where are they from? And blah blah blah. And you just keep exploring that, and then you end up finding out these little bits of information just by thinking about it.
Yeah.
And then, like you're saying, then that person's code develops, and then it's like, well, why do they believe what they believe? Well, their dad was this way, or their mom was that way, or their grandma was this way, or blah blah blah. And so then you have this whole group of people that basically help develop this character.
Yeah.
The evolution of his character happens, and then you if you continue to follow that, you almost have a full story unfold out in front of you just from a silly voice or something.
Right.
Okay. My random laughter that was totally inappropriate and out of time with this conversation had to do with Shawn's morbid fear of, not a fear that one of our children will become crazy famous celebrity artists, but that they will become that and he will be the asshole dad.
Oh yeah, in their biography.
In their biography.
That is always it's like when you watch
that was the random laughter.
When you watch someone's biography, it's always their dad was an asshole.
It's like the movie Ray. Every movie or Walk the Line. It's like any movie about a musician. Well, their dad was a terrible person, and their mom has had a heart of gold, and their brother died in a whale.
That's going to be our kid's biography.
So Shawn's terrified
and I'm going to be the asshole of their story.
I think, but that's the thing about those, like about people, though. I think is that I think a lot of people get embarrassed by their family once they leave it because. That really, like their family really does reveal a lot about who they are. Well, no offense to you guys. It's not what I'm saying, but I'm just saying that you can't really, like you can hang out with a person for a long time and be like, that's weird that they walk that way or talk that way, or I wonder why is their car so messy and all this stuff or whatever it is. And then you like, meet their family and there is like something about it that's revealing, like no matter no matter what they want to look like or something like that.
It can even be the opposite. It's like their car is so messy because their parents' car is so clean,
right?
Or it could be they just learn to be messy from their messy parents. It could be either one,
right?
But it
That's
is
not-
revealing either way.
That's not an excuse for my car being messy. I'm just saying.
And I like
Well,
the
it's
way
not
that
because
Shawn
ours is
set
so
it
clean.
up. Hey, I was saying, I like the way you set that up where it could be because we are so meticulously tidy.
We are
No.
better. We are better than when we were 24 years old.
No, but we were talking earlier about looking at characters, and you were talking about that, and I think that I see that over and over again, especially in There for a While. You wrote like a string of songs that were from a criminal's perspective. You know, it's like, what would happen if this guy stole a car, and what would happen if this, and I like that. I love that stories can start with something as simple as a silly accent, a silly line, or just those games that we play. What would happen if?
You're right.
You know?
Yeah.
Mhm. That's really just what's fun to me about writing or anything where you're telling a story, is just that you can be like, I've wanted to steal a car before. Here, I'm going to steal a car in this
my
song
imagination
or whatever.
in this song. Yeah.
It's not that I want to do everything that I write in my songs, but I think that it's kind of cool to look at somebody's life and try and be that character for a little while, like
Yeah.
even if it's not the most interesting or like the most desirable or something.
Mhm. I think motivation is fascinating. Like
Yeah.
following the thread to someone's motivation. And
Yeah.
then how it's interesting how like sometimes really bad things came out of good motivation. Like in Breaking Bad kind of that. I mean, I know you're a big Breaking Bad
Yeah.
fan, but
Yeah, it's kind of like that.
Okay, since we're talking about characters, here's an interesting thought, I think it is anyway, about stories, in that if you were to tell someone, you should live your life this way, or you should change your life to be better, or whatever, I don't know. But this is what religion does all the time to us. Try to tell us how, almost like giving us instructions. But we are not likely to listen to the instructions as well as we are to listen to stories. Like somebody's story that's similar to our story. Basically, we would be like, don't give me instructions as to how to change my life, but tell me a story that will inspire me to change my life. And I think that's our mentality, is that we have a tendency to want story to guide us more than we would want instructional living, like a how-to. Do you feel that that's true, or?
Yeah, I think that's true, but I think that it's kind of a weird circle because so people want to take from movies and music and whatever else how to live, and they all try to absorb that. But what's funny about those two things are that like some of the most critically acclaimed and interesting movies are about people that are just dysfunctional.
yeah.
And so it's like, how are you gonna
You can apply that one.
like,
Well-
yeah. Well, I think but I think that that's true though. I think that people do kind of take
Well, I mean, you
from stories.
yeah, I mean, you pull from stories what you like. I mean, what you feel like is beneficial to you. Then you almost can create a new story from that information, in your own life or whatever. And so there are aspects of, even though someone's might be, their life situation might be a disaster, but there's aspects of them as a person that, we might appreciate and that we might take something from that. Or we just simply might say, I don't want to go down that path, the same path they went down, and I can see myself doing that. And so you would want to
Yeah.
change. So there's that way of approaching
That's
that
true.
too.
Maybe I'm the only one that's like, ooh, I want to be that. I want to be that bum.
That
Or
bomb.
something like it's supposed to be a cautionary tale, and I'm like, interesting. That's probably not good.
Okay, so what do you guys feel like makes a great storyteller?
I have requirements that other people don't have
Oh, okay.
necessarily.
All right.
One of my
It's
requirements.
good hygiene.
I need to know these characters smell nice. And I want, usually a story paints a picture for you, but I want the aroma same. No, I'm just, this is total bullshit.
I totally believe that you could tell a story with nothing but aroma. I totally believe that.
Yes.
I haven't seen it done. I mean, smelled it done, but I would like to. I think it could be done. I could be done.
Smell-o-vision.
Smell-o-vision. No, what my requirements are is you've got to give me, and this isn't, most people need this one. This isn't the unusual one, but you've got to give me someone that I like. I hate stories where I hate all the characters.
Yeah, where you hate all the
characters.
Yeah.
It could even be an interesting enough story, but I'm like, I hate these people. They're pricks. I don't want to. I don't want to read this anymore, even if the story is interesting. So you got to give at least one person that I like, and that I can at some level relate to.
You have to like. I think that the alternative to that is like really loving to hate them.
Well, that's true.
Like if there's a character that's like, I don't know. I think that it's still intriguing if the person's like.
I know, but you like stuff I don't like. Yeah. I'm telling you, that's what I mean. I'm telling you, like
Your
me
criteria.
Personally, my criteria, the other criteria I have that I know other people don't necessarily have.
I do too. I hate movies or stories where you hate everyone, and that's the same with me. But
yeah, well, but the other thing that I need, and I've probably talked about this before, but I need redemption. I need freaking redemption in a story, especially if it's tortured me a little, if it's painful and gut-wrenching and broken my heart. You better damn well give me something to feel hopeful about at the end. I want some kind of resolution and really redemption for the pain you've put me through.
For the time put into it.
Yes. And I think I said before that's where I find Stephen King lacking, but I've only read,
But you do like his book on writing.
I love his book on writing, and I know that, and I haven't read Shawshank Redemption, and so I heard that's different.
What about The Body?
Well, I just watched Stand By Me, and that's freaking awesome, but I haven't read the book anyway. And the reason I think I have to have redemption, and I guess the redemption is a factor in the characters, me wanting to like someone, and that is because to me redemption is true. It's like, that is what's true. There's always, in my way of trying to absorb the world and see the world, there's always something redeeming about, in life.
There's
always something redeeming about a person.
To me, that's what I don't, but that's, I think, where I disagree as far as a good story, because it's like, it depends. I mean, whatever your story is, you only have like, if it's a movie, like maybe 2 hours, or like you have a set amount of time that you can, like, what are you going to put in between these two, beginning and end? Like, what are you going to put in between it? And like some stories, I do think that it's like still a valuable story if it's like what they put in between there isn't the end, like isn't the wrapped up, like good ending, but it's the like section of a person's life or whatever.
Well, and I don't want to be misunderstood. I'm not saying by redemption, I'm not saying give me a happy ending.
Right.
Give me a, it's got to be all wrapped up and it's got to be good. Yeah. But it has to feel true, and it has to feel, and that's where I hate slamming different things. So I won't, but it's like I've read books where it's just like, I don't believe these people because there's not anything about these people that I can.
Well, it's just as boring to read a book where the writer is trying to make everybody sound nice.
Oh yes,
that's so boring, and to me that's the same thing. Yeah, because it's not true. Being fake. Yeah, it's exactly. Not real. And so the one thing that I do think is entertaining about that is that it's like, okay, I can read a book or watch a movie or whatever, listen to a song or something, and I don't have to actually be in the room with that person. But if whoever's writes a character that's relatable, as far as like, I've met this person before and I wanted to leave the room. There's something about being able to, I mean, I think that it's just like dirty entertainment. You're just sitting there and you're like, this person's so terrible, and I can like enjoy their terribleness without actually having to interact with them. So there is like something to me that's like, I still like that. I think it's entertaining, or it can be.
Yeah. I think you seem to want to live through these bad characters, like you've mentioned a few times where it's like, I wish I could be that guy or whatever, even though that guy's kind of a bad guy. So it's almost like you want to express your dark side through these bad characters or something. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I think we're all like that.
Yeah. I guess I think it's fun. It's like, that's why I like true crime shows and stuff like that, or like con man shows. Like, I don't think those people are good people, but I think that
it's fascinating.
It's like, it's just funny. It's like, it's kind of sad and funny to me for some reason.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I found myself the other night, this is really weird. I was having trouble sleeping, and I found myself thinking about Jack the Ripper and his story. I was like, why? Oh my God, why am I thinking about that guy when I'm trying to go to sleep?
It's the worst thing.
But it's like, it's so fascinating, the whole story around that is so fascinating and horrible. But there's something about those stories that we really are drawn to, and I think it's probably because there's some side of us that feeds on that, I guess. I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I almost feel like it's probably good that we have some sort of voice for that side, or some sort of expression, that we can, it's almost like I don't know, just when we listen to music that seems chaotic, or we appreciate art that's just sort of abstract and weird and unusual or whatever, and it's almost like there's a part of us that needs that kind of outlet or something. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It's probably natural and probably good. We just don't really think about it.
Yeah, I think that there's, like, with music or art, it's just, there's kind of a place for every single thing. Like with music, it just depends on what you want. Like, there's some kind of music that appeals to your body, like you want to move to this music,
right? And
then there's some music that appeals to your mind, like you just want to absorb the music and like understand it. You want to spend time with it. And then there's other kinds of music that's just, it's like aggressive, and you just feel like it just
you want to feel it.
And I think it's just because it's such an emotional thing that you kind of need all these different things. Like, maybe that's the same with stories too, where you kind of, I don't think everybody has like a dark side, but I don't think that there's anything wrong with, I guess what you were saying, like, you were saying that you don't think that it's wrong necessarily to have an outlet for that. I don't think it's wrong, because it would be wrong if, I think it's wrong, like, to be that kind of person that's like buying art from a serial killer or something like that while they're in prison. Like those kind of guys, it's like, that's screwed up, because you're kind of like, you're celebrating it at that point, I think. But to be aware of it, I think is healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's almost what a lot of writers are doing, is they're being aware of like real dark stuff in the world. And I think that that's what, I don't know. I guess that's what I think is interesting, because it's like those kind of people probably aren't going to be the kind of people that, if they're that self-exploring, like if they're looking into themselves and thinking about dark stuff, and not dark stuff, like, I mean, if they're being conscious enough to look at themselves and compare themselves to other people that are not that desirable, and be like, okay, well, how am I going to avoid becoming this somehow?
Yeah.
I think that's what people do too with dark stories or sad stories or something like that. I guess it's just a cautionary tale in some ways. And so that's what they're doing, is comparing themselves and becoming aware of that in themselves. And I think that's what's interesting to me, is it's like, I think that sometimes the stories that we think are really terrible, and the people that we think are really horrible people, I think that a lot of times those stories started with like, well, the guy's car broke down. Like, if you track it all the way back, like the guy's car broke down or the guy's wife left him, or
Just one layer
like
on
it's just
top of
one
a-
thing after
yeah.
another thing after another thing. And so
Yeah.
it's like, to me, it's about, and I think that the people that really go bad in that way, like that somebody's car breaking down could get to them that bad, is because they're not self-aware.
Yeah.
And they have no idea
Well,
about that side.
And
Yeah.
they're being swayed by events that happen in their life.
Right.
So they're like their own personal integrity or character is not strong enough to withstand, their environmental situation.
Circumstances.
Yeah, circumstances. But didn't you and your sister used to create characters when you were kids that
Oh
Yeah.
boy, did they.
Yeah.
what are some of
what
the
do you mean?
what are some of the stuff that you guys used to come up with?
Well, I remember me and Tessa would stay up and make up characters for like, to the point where we hated the characters we were being. so we would be like, how can we make this person worse? And we'd be like, oh, maybe she talks like this. And then she'd be like, okay. And she has a small dog. Look at my dog Pringles. And like, we just do it till we hated the person. And I think that was like really fun to us, because we were like, we would never want to be around this person, even though it was someone we were making up.
Yeah. See, I think that's along the same lines of what you're talking about, where it's like you have this character, but you really don't want to become this person.
Yeah.
It's like, out of your own mind, you created this person that you can't stand.
Yeah.
Which I think is actually probably a good sign of brilliance, actually, because you're able to, distinguish, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but you're able to create something and distinguish that this is not such a good thing.
Yeah.
At the end of this episode, we're going to play Step Into the Light. It's one of Gabriel's songs, and it is very picturesque in its storytelling. It paints a lot of pictures for you. And so on that one, do you remember what your inspiration was, or what was the spark that led to that?
I think, I wrote that with Ricky Threlkeld, and we were recording songs underneath the stairs in the closet.
That's
closet.
awesome.
And he had the chords and stuff, and I was like, I think I came up with maybe like just the chords for the chorus or something, I don't know. And then I was like, hey, can I write lyrics to it or whatever? And then I just like sat down and wrote the lyrics. But I don't really know what the song's about overall. But I think it's about kind of trying to decide what kind of life you want.
Mm-hmm.
And how that's really hard. It's like I think it's an easier thing that said than done. Like, there's some people that like don't talk to any people at all. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
it's like they don't have anything to bounce ideas off of. And I think that that's kind of what that's about, is kind of being stuck between what you want and where you want to go, and if you want to stay like shut in and locked away, or try and interact.
Yeah.
You know? I don't know.
And there's some fun twists and turns in that song that I like so much, but we won't talk about them because we want them to experience them.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm the dorky mom in this interview.
Well, I think that's interesting, because you kind of hit on a thing where you have the quality of a person or the character of a person, and you expound in that and sort of deal with their personal situation in a more poetic, I guess, sort of way, in a way that's not as overtly telling that story straight out, but more bits and pieces, and you're just sort of creating a mood or a feeling of that character and of that situation.
Yeah.
And I think that people can really probably attach to those things, like you were saying earlier, where it's like, I don't know what it is about this song that I really like, but I'm just going to keep listening to it until, I think people really, that resonates with people on kind of a subconscious level.
Yeah. I don't think I really had the mood or anything while I was writing it, though. I think that comes where it will, like, in the process of writing stuff, maybe.
Like subconsciously, you're also writing or something of a person that doesn't really, of a kind of an abstract character that's not really that defined.
Yeah, I think that with writing songs or something, basically what happens for me is, like, I have a blank sheet and then I'm writing lyrics and I write lyrics and I write lyrics and I just write and write just kind of random phrases that I think are true in some way, or like that I think are making a point of some kind, or not making a point, just like that I wrote them for a reason, I guess. Mm-hmm. And then I just have a bunch of those, and then I end up like seeing patterns within that, not like, but I don't have an idea of what it's going to be usually.
Yeah. So do you often, like, you're rearranging those
and getting rid of stuff?
Yeah. You usually write alone. So writing with someone, do you enjoy writing songs with other people, or just depends?
Depends on the person. Some people suck.
It's easier for me to, it's hard for me to write words with people because it's a personal thing, I think.
But coming up with
like,
a tune.
Music is different. I think that it's easier to come up with music together.
We just want to thank you, Gabriel, for being on here with us today.
You're welcome.
It was great. You did good. We also want to thank you for listening to us and remind you that you can check us out on Twitter at Hancock Creative, on Instagram and Facebook at Hancock Creative Shop, or go to hancockcreativeshop.com. And we so enjoy you interacting with us on all those social medias. So come talk to us and check us out. And be sure and check out Gabriel's music at Gabriel Knight, GabrielKnight.bandcamp.com. And so now we're going to leave you with this lovely, lovely tune by Gabriel Knight Hancock and Ricky Threlkeld called Step Into the Light.
I heard heaven's the kind of place set real still, no finer game. Never thought that to be the case, but if it's true, I'll stay a sinner and I'll pray for grace. Pray from my lips or from a saint, it doesn't matter, they go to the same place. Keep your head up high, there's no pleasing mankind. Step into the light, or lock the door and stay inside. Walked home in the dark alone, swear I heard the voice of Mama's ghost. Corpses rattling in their graves, so whistled this song to keep me brave. Ran so fast from lawn to lawn, wish the neighbors would have left their porch lights on. Turned the knob and stumbled inside. Dad said, son, are you alright? Cousin James always telling lies, said he had powers that could make him fly. I said alright, show us then. He took off his shirt, showed his pale white skin. Had wings his whole life, never noticed he kept him strapped down tight. Still have his shirt and backpack, that day he flew away and he never came back. Keep your head up high, step into the light. Lock the door and stay inside.
This has been a Graphomania production. If you would like to hear more podcasts, go to graphocast.com, graphocast.com. Follow us on Twitter at Graphocast and like the Graphomania page on Facebook for news and updates.